Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the struggle for an inclusive gender parity between men and women is an ongoing challenge in South Africa. Mashatile delivered the key address at the opening of the P20 Women's Parliament. The event is part of the Women's Month recognition and celebrations throughout the country. The theme for this year is accelerating equality, sustainability and shared growth. The Deputy President told the gathering that despite the many gains achieved under a democratic dispensation, more needs to be done to emulate the women of 1956. Well, as you heard there, Parliament's hosting that 2025 P20 Women's Parliament, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza, joins us to tell us about women participation and how the 7th Parliament takes this conversation forward. Speaker Didiza, good afternoon, and thank you for making time to join us here on Business on Point.
Good afternoon. Indeed, you just took me away from a very interesting celebration where women were taking a group photo and singing and saying, we are now in the halls of Parliament. They want to move the bar from 50% to 80% representation of women in Parliament.
Well, that's really an exciting thing, and I'm sure that you'll be able to have another photograph. I mean, you're the woman of the moment, so I'm sure you can arrange that. But let's just begin with asking you now, how is the representation of women in the 7th Parliament compared to previous parliaments?
Well, I must say that there has been an improvement. At the moment, we're talking about 46% of women in Parliament coming from all the parties that are represented in our Parliament. As you know, we've got 18 parties that are represented in Parliament, almost all of them, except obviously one where you might have only one representation in Parliament, such as the ATM and the PAC, who don't have women. But most of the parties had actually tried in their list to make sure that there are more women who come to Parliament.
Well, now the two houses of the institution are headed by women, the National Assembly and the NCOP. Are there any challenges that they're experiencing as the two women in charge of the institution?
Well, there aren't. From where I sit, women presiding officers have really been able to hold their own and ensure that the Parliament as an institution is functional. It actually addresses issues that our society is concerned about. They've been able to ensure that the legislative program, where we draft laws that will enable the executive to undertake its task, is actually continuing. Also, to be able to engage with society through Parliament Meets the People, which is actually an outreach program of the NCOP. There we've been able to actually bring the issues from our communities to the table of Parliament, but also to the executive to address. Holding the executive to account is one of those areas where, as the leadership of Parliament, have made sure that we create space where the executive would come and actually account for how they have delivered on the programs that they have tabled. We are able to also ask questions to probe further on how the executive is utilizing public resources in line with the strategies that they have tabled in Parliament. So I would say there hasn't been a view, or rather feeling, that because women are in the leadership, you know, there is no respect, there is no, how do I call it, appreciation of their leadership of the institution.
So far, during deliberations this morning, what has been discussed in terms of challenges faced by women in this country, and what can be done to improve that situation?
I must say that issue of representation in decision-making structures, such as in public offices, the judiciary, in the private sector, has been acknowledged that there has been improvement, but more can still be done. Secondly, the persisting issue of gender-based violence despite legislative frameworks that are put in place, remains an issue of concern. The issue of women's economic emancipation is another area where women are taking stock of how government have created an enabling environment for women's economic inclusion. Looking at the various programs that have been undertaken, but again, acknowledging that more can still be done. I think women are also appreciative of how far, in terms of addressing women's concerns as a country, we have gone on issues of education, on issues of health. There is an appreciation that more has been done. Even in the judiciary, we have seen more women now, as judges and really holding their own. But we do believe that we still need to deal with some of those, issues that still hold women backward.
Excuse me. And lastly, you recently attended the 6th World Conference of Speakers of Parliament. What conversations were held, and how are speakers around the world advancing the work of parliaments?
Well, one of the things that we were looking at is how, as Parliament, we can actually play an effective role in peacemaking, in ensuring that we create, the conditions of peace globally. How do we effectively, as parliaments globally, utilize our voices to be able to create bridges where, countries can talk to each other and engage to better the lives of their communities and bring peace where there might be conflict. Issues of solidarity and how we can actually address issues of vulnerability and how, as parliaments, can actually speak with a voice to make sure that those who are voiceless in our societies feel represented. Again, the issue of women's participation in parliaments remain to be one of those issues that globally we feel we still need to increase, because women make the majority of our communities. However, their voices are heard, but not to the extent that we would want on the exercise of power.
I so appreciate the time you've given us this afternoon. Thank you. That was Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza.